pratyudhyaat vihana sayam vejeti sampaschat gavastogam gatasthara. You can chant. You like the chant, Manu? Okay. Manu, I guess you can chant now.
Thank you. Tatra 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 itair harihi pratyudhyataharanaha sayam vijayadisham paschat kavistogam gastastada.
Anybody else like to chant?
Tatra tatraha tatrata hari pratyudhuta arhana sayam vijiti sampascha kavistogam gatastada.
And anyone else?
Tatra 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 te hari pratyudhyataranaha sayam vijayadisham paschat gavistogam gatastada.
Anyone else? Tatra tatra. At different places. It so happened tatra yihe by local inhabitants. Hari, the personality of Godhead. Pratyudadyata arhantaha, being offered presentations and worshipable regards. Sayam, the evening. Deje, having overtaken. Disam, direction. Paschat, western. Gavastaha, the sun in the sky. Gam, to the ocean. Gata, having gone. Tada, at that time. So now the translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. On his journey through the provinces, he was welcomed, worshipped, and given various presentations. In the evening, in all places, the Lord suspended his journey to perform evening rites. This was regularly observed after sunset. Purport. It is said here that the Lord observed the religious principles regularly while he was on the journey. There are certain philosophical speculations that even the Lord is under the obligation of fruit of action, but actually this is not the case. He does not depend on the action of any good or bad work. Since the Lord is absolute, everything done by him is good for everyone. But when he descends on earth, he acts for the protection of the devotees and for the annihilation of the impious non-devotees. Although he has no obligatory duty, still he does everything so that others may follow. That is the way of factual teaching. One must act properly himself and teach the same to others. Otherwise, no one will accept one's blind teaching. He is himself the awarder of fruit of results. He is self-sufficient. And yet, he acts according to the rulings of the revealed scripture in order to teach us the process. If he does not do so, the common man may go wrong. But in the advanced stage, when one can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, one does not try to imitate him. This is not possible. The Lord in human society does what is the duty of everyone, but sometimes he does something extraordinary and not to be imitated by the living being. His acts of evening prayer, as stated herein, must be followed by the living being, but it is not possible to follow his mountain lifting or dancing with the gopis. One cannot imitate the sun, which can exhaust water even from a filthy place. The most powerful can do something which is all good, but our imitation of such acts will put us into endless difficulty. Therefore, in all actions, the experienced guide, the spiritual master, who is the manifested mercy of the Lord, should always be consulted, and the path of progress will be assured. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. On his journey through the provinces, he was welcomed, worshipped, and given various presentations. In the evening, in all places, the Lord suspended his journey to perform evening rites. This was regularly observed after sunset. So in Prabhupada's purports, he frequently writes many different things, and sometimes it would seem the word he chooses to use doesn't quite fit. This is not a mistake of Srila Prabhupada. He's doing this to catch our attention. He's trying to attract us to a particular point he wants to make. So like in this one here, in this purport, there's one sentence that's written all in italics, because this is a major sentence, and when Prabhupada originally wrote this out, he wrote this out in capital letters, and the editors, instead of put it in italics, or not in italics, but in italic print. Since the Lord is absolute, everything done by him is good for everyone. So, Lord Krishna is absolute. There's not anything that he cannot do. We see with our eyes, and hear with our ears, taste with our tongue, feel with our fingers. But Krishna can interchange these senses. He can see with his eyes, and he can also taste, touch, smell with his eyes. He even impregnated the living entities into this cosmos just by his glance. When he does something, it is for the ultimate good. To some, it may appear that it is a bad activity, just like some natural disaster. But there's a reason for this to happen. The reason isn't bad. Neither is it good. It's just the desire of the Lord. The Lord wants these things to happen so that mankind can realize, oh, I've done something I shouldn't have. And the spiritual master does this also. Just like, not to say that the temple president is the same as the spiritual master, but on one instance, I was in the temple when I was during japa period, and I was walking around the temple room, chanting. And some other devotees were also doing this. The devotee that was directly in front of me, he was walking around the temple also, and he was dragging his feet. Now, unless you know what the situation in the temple was like at the time, it's rather hard to understand this story, so I'm going to explain a little bit about what was going on. The temple had been under construction, and the last thing that was done with this new temple was they laid the marble floor in the temple room. And the temple president did this, and he didn't trust this to anyone else. He laid every single block. Well, actually, that's not quite true. He allowed one devotee to lay the tiles at the very back of the room. I guess he presumed that this devotee had some ability. Just outside the door, there was a pile of sand that somehow or other also quite often seemed to end up spread on the sidewalk leading into the temple. And so devotees would come and take their shoes off and step in this sand and go into the temple room. Now this particular devotee, because he was dragging his feet and he had sand stuck to his feet, that meant the sand was scratching the marble. Not very much, just a little. If he would have picked up his feet, the sand would have fallen off. After every step, some would fall off. And he wouldn't be dragging it around the temple room. But he didn't pick his feet up at all. He was dragging his feet. And this particular devotee had somewhat of an ego. He didn't like people to tell him that he was doing something not proper or some had deficiency in it. Everything he did was perfect. And so the temple president, understanding this, didn't chastise him. Instead, he picked on poor little Rohita walking behind. He said, Rohita, stop dragging your feet. And so I thought, oh, he's not really chastising me, he's chastising somebody else. I was able to perceive that. And so I, purposely stepped more evidently than I was before. And this devotee also similarly did the same thing. So the temple president got the desired result. This devotee stopped dragging his feet. It wasn't done in the usual way, but the desired result was obtained. So the purpose behind this is that whatever the Lord ordains in the world happens. And there's nothing the living entity can do that will alter these things from happening. And the Lord does this in his own transcendental way to teach something, to bring us closer to him. Everything he does for our benefit. Even though we may perceive the situation as being horrendous, a little child is killed, or many people are killed. It just happened to be, it was their time. And according to their karmic that they had accumulated over many births. And Krishna had arranged that they all be placed in the same area, in the same location. And when the disaster came, they all received the result. That lifetime ended. So we can see by these activities of the Supreme that they're not arbitrary, and they're actually done for the good of everyone. Because the good of everyone means that we will be corrected of our deficiency, whatever those deficiencies are. And if we're in this material world, that means we have a lot of them, because that's the nature of those in the material world, who have lots of deficiencies, lots of improper activities, improper thoughts, improper deeds, improper way of doing things. This is a place for reformation, this material world. In the spiritual world, everything goes on as the Lord desires, and everything in the material world goes on as the Lord desires. But there's a difference between the spiritual and material worlds. In the spiritual worlds, all these activities go on with the joy of the devotees, of those associates of the Lord. And in the material world, all these things go on without our desire. In fact, we'd like them not to happen at all, because we see them as being horrendous. Krishna consciousness is about, as I mentioned, reforming our activities so that we're in line with the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I just want to read part of the purport again. The Lord in human society does what is the duty of everyone, but sometimes he does something extraordinary and not to be imitated by the living being. He's doing this, first of all, to set example of how one should behave. But then there are activities that show his supremacy, because there isn't anyone capable of doing those things. And then Prabhupada gives the example of lifting up over downhill and dancing with the gopis. How does a little 7-year-old boy, with his little finger of his left hand, which is considered to be the weakest finger, how does he lift this big mountain of Govardhan? Well, actually, Govardhan is not so big, but it still is a mountain. It's not exactly small. And how does someone divide himself into so many gopis, thousands of them, so that each gopi was dancing with a Krishna? And it wasn't that all the Krishnas moved in unison with each other. No. Every Krishna with every gopi was completely independent. They didn't move in unison. They reacted to the person they were with according to the circumstance. So Krishna can do these things, no one else can. And if we try to act as the Supreme, as the controller, as the orderer, if we try to do that, we will terribly fail. So there is some difficulty there. We have to admit that there is a Supreme Person, and it's not me. So how's that go? Anyway, I am the eternal servitor of Krishna. Krishna Das. Yes, I am the eternal servitor of Krishna. I am full of eternality, I am full of bliss and I am full of knowledge. Only as long as I act in unison with the Lord. As soon as I don't act in unison with the Lord, it doesn't apply. It becomes covered over. I forget that I am his eternal servant. I become bewildered. So is there some discussion, some question? Anyone have any questions, any comments?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, I thought that somebody there in the temple room.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No one is asking question here.
Okay, I remember everything happened for our own good. You were mentioning the story of the king and the prime minister go for hunting, and king cuts his finger and loses it, and the prime minister says, "Everything for your own good," he says. The king gets very angry and puts him in the jail. And later on, when he goes up for hunting some other time, he was caught by the tribal people and they wanted to sacrifice him. And then find that one finger is missing. You remember the story?
Yes.
Yeah, that I remembered it. Everything Krishna does for our own good, we have to accept it. Thank you.
Yes, that is one of the stories that's told with this particular subject also. Yeah. So, is there some question involved with that or just a statement? Manu, do you have some question?
It's a statement only, but how to
Yeah, you have
achieve
given a
that?
statement, but do you have also a question?
Yeah, how to attain that status by ourselves, everyone.
How to
attain that status of thinking that everything happening is for our own good with the mercy of Krishna.
Yes. How do we act in that way? Well, this requires, first of all, on our part, some surrender. And it requires also the knowledge of Krishna's abilities. And as the last sentence in the purport mentioned, we have to, first of all, take the guidance of the spiritual master, the Acharya, in concert with the other sadhus and the Shastra. So first we come into knowledge. What is the proper activity under this particular circumstance? And then we carry out that activity without expecting any kind of reparation, any kind of payment, any kind of glorification. We give up those concepts and we just act according to the directions of those acharyas, Guru, Sada, and Shastra. This is how we know we can be on that path. If what we're doing is in agreement with these three. So this means, in the beginning, we have to think about every situation we come up. How would my spiritual master expect me to act in this circumstance? And then we have to act in that way, provided we understand what he means when we say what the spiritual master has given. So that is best obtained by associating with other devotees, especially those that give evidence by their behavior of they understand the word of the Acharya. So we get their association, and by constantly associating with them, by hearing from them, by seeing how they react, we come to understand what is the proper procedure, and then we also do this activity. It's not that we are blindly following. We are acting in sync with the cyclic succession. We're acting in accordance with the desire of the Supreme by doing so. This is how we come to understand that situation. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, definitely. Saraswati Mataji has got some. Go ahead, Saraswati Mataji.
Okay.
Comes to all. Thank you for such a good class. I've got a question. There's this being in the material world, fake it till you make it. So for a beginner, they may not be able to make the distinction between following and imitating, because if they see that their spiritual master is the ideal person, and they want to develop those qualities, they may think, oh well, I can fake it, I can imitate whatever it is that he's doing because I want to be like that person. So the lines get a little bit blurry between what it means to follow and what does it mean to imitate. Hare Krishna.
Yes. What is the difference between following and imitating? That's what it boils down to. Actually, I remember in Seattle a long time ago when Prabhupada was there, and there were a number of other devotees. Can't remember who it was. I think it was, I've forgotten his name. Anyway, this particular devotee, when all the other devotees would bow down when Prabhupada entered the room, he didn't bow down. And he brought this up to Prabhupada. He said, what do I do? I don't feel like I should bow down. And Prabhupada said, do it anyway. And in time you will understand why you're bowing down. So in the beginning you may imitate, you may follow this path of imitation. But you should also try to reason out why. Why like this? Why not like that? Why not some other way? And if you do this and you refer to Shastra while you're doing this speculation, because that's what it is. So if you read in the Shastra and try to search out why this is done like this, and other circumstances of it being done by some acharya, then by that kind of study you come to some kind of realization. Not some speculation, you come to realize this is done to show why I am bowing down to this particular person. Why? Because he is of such high quality that I should show him this kind of respect. Anyone that comes from an Indian family, and actually a lot of different cultures in the world, always show respect to senior members in the family and in the community, teachers, older persons, different leaders. This respect is offered because they show exemplary acts. And by offering this obeisances, one comes to understand that this person's not ordinary. This person is special. This is a person I should follow his example. I should inquire from him how to act under various different circumstances. I should ask him to give guidance. Why? Because he understands the Supreme. because he understands who Krishna is and he understands what his relationship to Krishna is. Most of us don't understand our relationship with Krishna. This is what these particular chapters in the first canto are about. How does the living entity associate with Krishna? In this instance, Krishna is leaving Dwarka. Oh no, he's leaving Hastinapur and he's heading for Dwarka. He's going to be heading for Dwarka, but he's visiting all the area around Hastinapur. And in essence, he is saying goodbye to all these different people who have come to see him in the past while he was in Hastinapur. So he's going around to their homes and he is seeing all of them and he is saying that I am leaving now. And so the inhabitants of Hastinapur are feeling great separation. Just as the inhabitants of Dwarka are feeling separation because Krishna was not there. It's all about how we relate to the Lord, how we express our love for the Lord. Is there anything else? Any other questions or comments or? Well, if there's no questions or comments, I have some homework for those who are still listening. In the next, I think it's the next verse, which would be the first verse of the next chapter, it mentions two words in the purport: melancholy and sadness, or sad and melancholy. There's a distinction between these two words, and Prabhupada doesn't idly use these words, and he specifically uses this word melancholy for a particular reason. You need to know what that is before you actually read that purport. This hearing of the Bhagavatam or the reading of the Bhagavatam is not an idle literary activity. You really need to think about what are the meanings behind the words that are being used. Just why does he use this word and not another word? Because he's teaching something. These two words they're similar, but they don't have exactly the same meaning. So you need to find out what is the difference between being sad and being melancholy. I think it may surprise you.
What is the second word you're saying? What is the second word?
Melancholy. Melancholy and sadness.
Melancholy.
If you look in the dictionary, or in a thesaurus, and you'll find out in the thesaurus, melancholy, homonym for it will be sadness. But they're not the same. There's a distinction. I want you to try to understand what the distinction between melancholy and sadness is. Because the gopis and the inhabitants of Hastinapur and Dwarka felt this melancholy nature. It's not that they were feeling sad, they were feeling melancholy, and there's a difference. So this is your homework for tomorrow. When you study the scripture, you need to inquire. Why does he use this particular word? Does it have a special meaning? And just what's in this for me? What am I supposed to get out of this? It's not some scholarly study. These words are meant to awaken your spirit soul, to bring you closer to Krishna. And if you don't actually concentrate on it, you're not really hearing. You're listening, but you're not really hearing what's going on. There's another set. Listen and hear. There's a difference between listening and hearing. It's not very gross, it's very, very subtle. But there's a difference. Don't be someone who passively listens. Be someone who actively hears. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam.